Look how they massacred my boy.
Okay, that's a bit of an exaggeration. However, this episode was literally my biggest fear come true. For those of you who don't know, my favourite ever episode of Doctor Who is 2008's Midnight. The whole script from beginning to end is absolutely phenomenal, but the one thing that lingers about the episode above all else is that you never get any answers. Lovecraftian cosmic horror is rarely done well on film, but Midnight absolutely nails it. You practically know nothing by the end of the episode, but just enough to be able to understand what you just watched. It's the kind of perfect ambiguity that last season's 73 Yards failed to get right for me. Naturally, this has led to countless conversations with friends and fellow Whovians about what episodes should never be followed up on. My answer always being Midnight. And now here we are, a sequel to Midnight set 400,000 years after the original. Does it ruin the mystique of the original episode? Slightly, but not enough to be damaging. In fact, it makes the rules of the creature substantially less clear, but does that work in the episode's favour? I'm not sure. The problem with bringing back a villain in Doctor Who, especially a more conceptual foe, is you've got to add something new to the mythos. It happened back in 2010 with the Weeping Angels and the new rules that were implemented to their existence. The image of an angel becomes itself an angel, that they can break necks and steal voices, not to mention the fact that we actually see them move on screen. Safe to say, it annoyed a lot of die-hard Blink fans. But it would also be extremely hard to bring them back just as they were, as a one-trick pony is not much fun for an audience. The same stands with the Midnight entity. What are you going to do, just have it repeat everyone again? No, you can't do that, and Russell T Davies understands this. So he and potentially co-writer Sharma Angel Wallfall decided to rewrite the rulebook. Have the entity still be a parasite, but have it cling on to rather than possess a host. Have it cling onto their back like the Trickster's Brigade in Turn Left. And have it kill anyone that looks at it when positioned directly behind the host. I will say, this rule was a little unclear. I'm not sure if you actually do have to look at the creature for it to kill you, or if you just need to be behind it. The Doctor tells everyone to look away, so I assume the former. And most notably, have it be a physical, tangible being that chases the cast in the third act. Which is by far the biggest crime of the episode in my books. Why on earth did we actually get to see the fucking thing? Russell, you spent so long pondering whether you could do it that you never stopped to think whether you should. Right, I'm aware that a lot of people actually think this is a really good continuation of Midnight already, so yet again it seems I'm in the minority here. But you have to understand that Midnight is my Blink. I feel now exactly how people felt when the Angels returned in 2010, or 2012. I have literally no qualms with the concept and creature of this episode other than the fact that they're from Midnight. Because the problem is now, I feel like I need a motivation for the creature, which is the one thing that you should never get from the Midnight entity. Or I guess the Midnight creature now that we know it's an actual thing. Because that's what made it so scary in the first place. But I worry that I can't really buy this story without a motivation. Why has it shifted from trying to learn about other species, through sinister and invasive means, to just clinging on to nearby specimens and getting them to kill each other? Clearly there has always been some deeply malevolent and sadistic psychology to the creature, as it enjoyed pitting people against each other and causing chaos amongst them in Midnight. But the story was contained enough with a small enough cast that you didn't need to know what the creature wanted, just that it wanted something bad, and that it was using the passengers on the bus to get that. Here, it wipes out a whole mining colony and stays stuck to this poor woman's back for 15 days while she's all alone for what? To throw around a bunch of soldiers like a baby chucking its toys out of the pram? Again, that's part of the horror, not knowing, but with the stakes and circumstances raised, so does the justification need to be. Why has this escalated? Why has this creature changed? Honestly, this would be a near perfect episode of Doctor Who for me if it wasn't a Midnight sequel, and unfortunately that's an emotional response that I won't be able to change, no matter how objectively I look at the episode. I will say though, I think it all ends in an interesting place. I argued before that Midnight should never be touched by the writers again, but I really mean it this time. Do not touch this ending. It's a near perfect cliffhanger that no resolution could ever live up to. I got some bad ideas in my head for all the horrible shit that could happen after this ending, and any continuation would inevitably disappoint me. Following this point, a really interesting and subtle detail about the episode that a lot of people might have missed is that there are actually two creatures in this story. The malice and the cunning of the creature from the episode's predecessor returns wonderfully when you figure out its plan in the end. It seems that as soon as the Doctor decides to rid Alice of the parasite and take her home, the creature knew that it had to pretend to leave her if it wanted any hope of reaching a civilization to destroy, dismantle, who knows. So it does that. It stages Alice's escape. Because when the Doctor puts Alice and two guards in the airlock, the screen next to the door reads 4 life forms, and this is before Belinda gets contaminated by another creature that breaks through the building. This is a brilliantly subtle piece of storytelling that was alluded to masterfully earlier in the episode by paying the screen some attention earlier when it showed the maximum capacity in the airlock. Also, it's very clear that Belinda's creature does not latch onto the captain once she's rid of it, but instead onto Mo, as we see from the ending scene, making the captain's already tragic sacrifice not only sad, but pointless. And if you needed more proof, the captain's back is turned to everyone the whole time and no one dies, not even when the Doctor stares directly at her back before she jumped into the well. I initially thought that this was maybe a directing and staging issue, but it seems incredibly deliberate here in secretly telling us that 2 creatures escaped the planet. Absolutely brilliant visual storytelling. Thank you to my good friend Horizon for pointing this out to me. Although, admittedly, there were a few goofs with the staging in this episode, particularly in the big hall with Alice. There are multiple points where her back is turned to people and they were surely looking straight at her too, so they should have all died way earlier. Unless the creature actually has control over when it strikes, which seems more likely, especially for such an intelligent being, and it further supports the theory of faking Alice's escape from it. I do wish that Alice would have actually been possessed though. It felt as if it was going in that direction with her constantly pleading to be taken home, the creature using her as a voice, asking to be taken to a larger population. But that wasn't the outcome, which was a little disappointing. It would have maybe been more interesting to me if this was the route they went and had a bit of an alien to aliens dynamic like the Weeping Angel's return in Series 5, with multiple of those creatures latching onto a few people and trying to manipulate the rest into taking them quote unquote home. This could have even developed their learning and evolution from Midnight, with them now perfectly adapted to communicate and manipulate, but that's just a suggestion in hindsight. I will say that the build up to the reveal was excellent. As soon as the crew touch down on the planet, the episode is incredibly atmospheric, tense and intriguing. Even the reveal of the planet being Midnight, whilst not what I wanted, was still incredibly well handled. The cuts back and forth between the Doctor and Belinda and what they were both going through was fantastic, and the exposition was delivered supernaturally. The first glimpse of the creature behind Alice was really frightening too, and delivered perfectly on the desired effect of not only making me jump, but making me scan the room looking for evidence of this life form. Though I'm a little confused as to why Alice kept the creature hidden from everyone until it finally did something, rather than just outright asking for help as she does one scene later. There's a little nitpick there, but it doesn't detract from an extremely effectively paced first act. I also thought Ncuti really felt like the Doctor in this episode. This episode may have even been his I am the Doctor moment for me. The way he confidently takes charge of the whole crew from minute 1, using his psychic paper to integrate himself and leading the charge into investigating the whole scenario, is absolutely brilliant. He asserts himself over nearly every character, has an undeniable amount of control for something that's totally unpredictable, and brings a real sense of urgency to the story that this era has been severely lacking up to this point. I just wish that this was the first time we ever saw Ncuti's Doctor cry. The scene where he's face to face with the creature would have hit so much harder if we hadn't seen the 15th Doctor in a state like this before. That's why the Doctor's petrification in Midnight is so effective, because Tennant has never had such a primal fear in his eyes before. If he blubbered and shook in the face of every enemy he faced, Midnight would not work anywhere near as well as it does, and I think the same applies here, but the inverse. Belinda is also characterised really well once again. I'm so glad her character seems to be developing leagues past the poor writing she had in episode 1, even if her dynamic with the Doctor feels a little rushed, but again, 8 episode syndrome. Seeing her genuinely worry about what might be happening to Earth in 2025, to her family, to the future of the human race, is characterisation that has been sorely missed in this show's companions since 2017. And watching her rush to people's aid was wonderful too. Seeing her sympathise and want better circumstances for audibly impaired people was really nice to see, and watching her care for the unnamed bodies laid out throughout the facility, plus the soldiers who were killed in front of her, was wonderful. I do wish that she maybe had more pushback against being shot at the end, or I at least wish the stakes felt a little higher in the moment to justify her accepting it, especially with her being a nurse. But that aside, I thought her character was especially strong in this episode, and Varda did an excellent job portraying the character, as did all of the extended cast, whose characters actually felt fleshed out somewhat. 2 weeks in a row, it's almost unbelievable. Much like last week, there was some really nice downtime and character building for the supporting characters, and I feel like I at least got to know a few of them decently well. Mainly the captain and Alice, who was easily the standout thanks to Rose Ayling-Ellis's wonderful performance. I especially enjoyed the undertones of morality running throughout the story, most notably when the captain gets Cassio killed. A necessary evil? Maybe, maybe not. And it was nice to see another deaf character in the show, especially now that the programme is utilising the Doctor's ability to speak sign language, which Capaldi's incarnation rather comically forgot. The visual translators were also a really nice touch, and I'm glad some actual thought and care went into the representation in the writer's room this episode. Although I will say the captain's death was a little too cheesy for my liking. Since this is a character we only got like 20 minutes with, her sacrifice was never going to hit the audience too hard. So throwing in some flashbacks and a voiceover felt like it lessened the impact, if anything. Like the episode was trying to force you to care about her as much as possible when, honestly, less is more. The Doctor screaming "No!" rather than just trying to talk her down also felt a little fabricated. Diverging from that, the set and costume design was absolutely fabulous. The corridors and the planet's surface really reminded me of Aliens, and I loved the vault-like bedrooms of the mining crew. It was a simple yet extremely effective design choice that just makes you feel like you're in a sci-fi world. It's not too different to what we have, but weird enough to feel alien. And both director Amanda Brocci and director of photography Nick Dance did absolute wonders to make this location look as stunning as possible. Although, the Doctor and Belinda putting on the exact same spacesuits in the TARDIS as everyone else had outside was way too convenient for my liking. I would have loved a return of the orange suit, which actually appeared in Jodie Whittaker's last episode, or even if the pair were forced to scramble into the uniform as soon as they left the TARDIS. Either way, it would have set them apart from everyone else and prefaced their interrogation much better. But, again, just a nitpick to an otherwise brilliant episode. Overall, it's really hard to describe my thoughts on this episode. It's a really, really great episode of Doctor Who, but I half hate it just based on principle. If this wasn't a sequel to Midnight, I'd be screaming best episode in years from the rooftops, but because it is, that severely muddies the waters for me. Look, I'm going to be fair and give this episode a 7 out of 10 because it really is an incredibly effective 45 minutes of television and likely the best episode of Nshuti's run from a quality perspective. But retreading ground that should have been long left behind really does knock this down in my books. Thank you all for watching, I hope you enjoyed the review. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. Click the link on the left of the screen to go back and check out my other reviews for Doctor Who, and click the link on the right to check out some other cool stuff on the channel. As always, take care of yourselves guys, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.